Okay, guys, we are about to start this webinar. If you can just let me know that I am audible so that I don't start without you guys hearing me, that would be good. I'm just waiting for anybody to type into the chat box. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Bev. Okay, so we're ready to begin the webinar. Thanks for joining me. We're going to cover everything that deals with SQL specifically and Debtors Manager. Just an overview of what we're trying to achieve when we install SQL database, and that is simply that Debtors Manager stores all its data in Microsoft SQL, and Partner stores its data in Pervasive SQL, and we read all the data out of the transaction history from Pervasive, the ACTRANS file, put it into SQL, and then add all our additional notes. So I'm going to jump right into the app, and then we'll work our way into the troubleshooting section. So the first thing that you do is install SQL on your server. And I need to reiterate that you never install SQL on the workstation. It's a cardinal error, and I know why it happens. I'll get to that. But once you've installed SQL and you open up Debtors Manager, this is the screen that most people get. Okay, so on the server itself, this doesn't present a problem. This little screen here presents a problem when we get to the workstation. So I'm just going to work kind of backwards, and we'll get back to the server. I'm going to assume that you've successfully installed SQL on the server, because 90% of the troubleshooting that I do doesn't involve installing SQL itself. The installation process is pretty much taken care of provided you're running decent software on your server. So if you're running, for instance, Windows XP Pro, you might have a problem installing SQL. It does work with it, but it's not ideal. But if you're running Microsoft Business Server or anything later than that, or any specific server software, and you've got at least 4 megs of RAM, you would have installed SQL on your server just using the normal install wizard. But more on that in a moment. So we're at the point where you've installed SQL on the server, and now you're on the workstation. You've installed Debtors Manager. Well, you've actually got Debtors Manager working on your server, and you have got this little pop-up screen here on your desktop, on your workstation. So the first thing that you need to do is click on Browse, and it says Processing Data Now. So what we're doing when we click on Browse here is we're looking for the SQL server. Okay, so once you've clicked on Browse, only then do you click on this drop-down button here. Okay, and it will populate a list of all the SQL server names and instances. So typically it starts off with the name of the server, so it might just be called server, and then it will have a backslash and the instance name, which hopefully would show Debtors Manager. Okay, my PC shows Cache Manager because it's got a memory of the last installation, and SQL actually just doesn't delete that type of thing out of the memory. Okay, so I'm going to stick to the top name here because I didn't create a separate instance for Debtors Manager. I'm going to get to instances and discuss what they are in a minute, but for now we're working on our desktop or workstation, and we're trying to connect. So the next thing that you need to do is create a database. So before you click on New Database, you'll see I've got Windows Security checked here. You wouldn't have Windows Security on your local workstation. You untick that box if it is ticked, and you put in your username and password. Username is always SA, and password is Debtors Manager at 123. That's the default. I've got a document here that I'm going to send to everyone this document. It is available on the Pastel Reseller Zone. Let me just go home. But I will email it to all the participants along with a host of other SQL materials that will come in handy. But suffice to say, let's go back to here. You've got your username and your password. And now, for the magic moment, when you click on the drop-down, it should populate with the name of the database that you created on the server. As I say, we're working a bit backwards here because I'm assuming that you've already created a database on the server. But if you haven't, this is what you would have done in the first place. So let's just take one step back and say that you're on the server and you want to create a database. So on the server, you tick Windows Security, all right? You click on New Database and enter the name of your new database. Click OK. And it says it already exists, fine. So let's create a different name. New DB. Click OK. And wait for it to populate with the name of that database in the line here. You don't need to browse for it. It will automatically pop up. Okay. Once you've created the database, okay, remember we're on the server now, click OK, and it will ask you to browse for the company. So being on the server, it would be on your C drive under Pastel or wherever you've got your Pastel companies located. Okay, so now what we've basically done is we've told the database to get its data from the Pastel partner company, and this is the path for that company. Click OK, and we'll refresh the data. Give me 1 second here. Okay. Okay. I'm just closing my chat box. All right. So given that we've got this up here, means we've had a successful installation on the server. Now, when I go to File Open Company, it shows me this information again. That's my. It's not my database, is it? We just created a new one. New DB123. Okay, so it's that one. So when I go to File Open Company, there it is. If I want to know which database or which Pastel file it's connecting to, I go back to File, I say Locate Pastel Company File, and it shows me that I've connected on this path to the demo company. Just looking at this little screen at the moment, what's worthwhile noting here is when you're on the workstation, you will not, and you typically will have a map drive for your partner company. So you would have browsed for the mapped drive. So don't browse for the local Pastel company on the local workstation. Browse for across the network. And really, what we want to do here is ensure that the path is identical to whatever you have set up in your Pastel company. So if the path for Pastel was P:\Pastel14 demo, that's what you would want on the workstation, that is. Okay. So, and Debtors Manager always remembers the last path. So if someone goes and switches it to C drive on the server, it's going to remember that the next time you open up on the workstation. So you just need to rebrowse for the P drive. All right. So coming back to where are we at the moment? Let's assume that this here is the server setup and we're happy. Everything's fine. Now we're on the workstation, and again we click File Open Company, and we want to connect across the network. So we will not be using Windows Security. We use SQL authentication. So just a word about the difference between the two. Windows Security allows the administrator to set up all the setup for SQL Server on the server. However, when you are working across the network, you need to use SQL Server authentication, which is a combination of a username and a password. The username being SA and the password being Debtors Manager at 123. Where all the trouble comes in is in these three lines, when you cannot connect over the network to your server. Okay? So the first thing to check is my server name the correct server name, and is the instance name the correct instance name? How you determine whether it's correct or not is open SQL Server Management Studio. Alright, when you install SQL on your server, it will come with this program installed. So when you go to All Programs, you'll go down to Microsoft SQL Server 2008 R2. That's the release that's on the Pastel CD. And here is SQL Server Management Studio and configuration tools, which you need too. You've got your SQL Server Configuration Manager. You need that as well. So those two tools are necessary to set up SQL on your server. If you don't have those two installed, you need to download them from Microsoft Downloads. It's a free download. Okay, so I've already opened those. So I was saying, to check the name of the server, let's open SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, I'm just going to collapse these. I've got two instances of SQL Server running at the moment. So one is called Ardent PC, the other one is called Ardent PC /SQL Express. You can have multiple instances of SQL running. And that's quite important to note, because the trouble always comes in when the client has already installed SQL before you got there. And I'm going to chat about that in a minute. But for the meantime, what we're trying to do here is select the right name of the instance. So how do I know which one of these is correct? If I drop down here under databases, not security, I can see all the names of the databases that are sitting under this instance. So the new database that was created, I don't actually see it here. Let me see if it's under this one. It's not there. I've got a test DB here. Okay. The reason it's not showing is I need to refresh this list. Okay. So this was open prior to me creating that new database name. So if I right-click on the name of the instance and say restart, it says, do you want to? Yes. Okay, so this is a critical part of SQL Server. You always need to refresh or restart the server when you make changes on SQL Server. If you don't, then when you go back to your workstation, nothing would have changed. So everything that you do, once you've made your changes, do a refresh. And now hopefully that database will appear, and I don't see it there still. Debtors Manager 123. I'm going to close this instance. I'm going to reconnect. So clicking this connect button brings up this dialog, which will display when you open SQL Server Management Studio. This is what you get. It asks you for the server name. Okay, so I've got all those various instances there. And I'm going to select PC. Again, it asks you for Windows authentication or SQL Server authentication. You are already on the server, so select Windows authentication. It's a key. Connect. Okay. So now it's opened my SQL Server here, and when I'm just going to collapse this other one here. I'll open databases. And here is that database that we just created, new DB123. So, long story short, we've got the instance name here called Ardent PC and new DB123 sitting underneath it. When I go back to Debtors Manager, I've got Ardent PC sitting here, and here's my database sitting underneath it. Now, the What comes in between is that you need the right username and password to be set up on the server. So if I go back to Management Studio, I'm just going to collapse this instance and open this one. Close these databases, and under Security, under Logins, okay, so if you have a look at what we've done here, we've opened Security, we've opened Logins, and here we've got SA. That's the key to look at. If you double click on SA, you get this dialog here. So your login name is SA. It shows Windows Authentication or SQL Server Authentication, which is selected here. And we've got password, and you need to reconfirm the password. So you can overwrite a password. So let's just talk about how this goes wrong. The first circumstance that you've got is you're installing SQL Server on a server that's never had SQL installed on it before. That's much easier, because then the default installation will create a username called a login name called SA, and a password called Debtors Manager 123. So that's done. The problem is a prior installation of SQL will prevent the wizard from creating a new instance called server /Debtors Manager, which is your instance name. And if you don't know the password for SQL Server specifically, you're going to be locked out. You will not be able to connect over the network. And typically, the person that created the SQL password isn't around anymore or can't remember the password they created, and it's never the same password as the administrator password to open up Windows on the server. All right, that's what everyone assumes. It's the same password. It's not. And entering that password is pretty futile. So if you get to the screen here, you can change the password simply by typing over the password and reconfirming it. That works 9 times out of 10. If it doesn't work, then maybe the system IT person has set up SQL that locks you out of that instance, and you could simply reinstall SQL Server and create a new instance. So I'm going to get to that. Your objective now is you're faced with a scenario where you've got SQL Server installed already, and you want to reinstall SQL Server, but not uninstall the existing SQL Server because maybe they are using SQL Server for other applications in the company. If they're not, sure, you can uninstall and reinstall from scratch. But let's assume that you don't want to uninstall SQL Server. What you need to do is download a new copy of SQL Server from Microsoft. It's a free download. I'll give you a resource here. Let's have a look. Download. Okay, this is the address. I'm going to email you this document so that the address is contained on there. You download SQL R2008, or if you want, you can go for 2012. Debtors Manager works with both. Okay. Once you've downloaded it, you're actually going to now reinstall SQL on your server. And it will take you through the wizard, and it will authenticate each step of the way that the installation is valid. During the installation process, it will come to a screen that allows you to enter the name of the instance. And this is critical, because if you just click Next, you're going to bypass exactly what you set out to do. So where it allows you to enter the instance name, you'll put in Debtors Manager, and it will also come to another screen that's going to say, do you want mixed mode authentication or SQL authentication? And it's critical to select mixed mode authentication. That's a key thing. You can, if you make a mistake, you can go back and actually create mixed mode or set it up in Configuration Manager that you create mixed mode authentication. All right, so how you would do that, I've got a screenshot here for you. Now to switch to mixed mode authentication. So we're assuming that you've only got Windows security and you want to switch to mixed mode. This document here is something I'll be emailing to you as well. This is directly from Microsoft. It takes you through the steps of what to do. I've added these screenshots in for you here. So you would open up your Studio Manager and go on to Security, go on to Logins, SA, under Logins here. So it's actually got Server Properties. Under Security, it says, do you want Authentication Mode or do you want SQL Server and Windows Authentication? Okay, so you need just to select this radio button. So this screenshot you'll be getting via email as well, just to give you a reminder of where to go. So the actual steps that you need in order to get to the screen that you're seeing here are up here. Okay. I'm not able to show you on my version here because I'm not linked to a network. So if I click on Security here, it just expands Security, and if I click on SA, you can see the SQL authentication and Windows authentication is grayed out. However, what you also need to do is, once you've done that step, and again, this is in this document that I've just shown you, it's a really critical thing. It says here, enable the SA login. Okay, so SA login refers to logging in over the network. You don't need an SA login when you're working on the server. That's why you use Windows Security. So it tells you here exactly what to do, these 3 steps, which is basically saying go to SA and click on server roles, no, status. Okay. Under status, you'll see settings, and it says permission to connect, grant, and login enabled. I don't need to have login enabled because I'm working on a local machine, but if I had a network to consider, I would need it to be enabled. So this is a key thing, because if you simply set up mixed mode authentication and you don't have these settings enabled here, you'll still be locked out. Once you've selected these, I'm just going to go back to disabled here. Once you've made your changes here, you still need to go and right-click on the instance name and say, okay, now I'm going to restart my SQL Server. Okay, that's really important. Otherwise, all the changes you've made won't have any effect. There is no need to reboot the server itself. You're just restarting SQL Server database engine. Okay, so let's just get out of this here. Let's go back to where we were. And just to recap what we've achieved now. So we've confirmed that the server name is correct, the instance name is correct. By the way, if you create an instance and it's called Debtors Manager is your instance and it doesn't populate here. Once you've clicked browse and done your drop down and it still doesn't populate, you can by all means simply type it in. And remember, it's a backslash, not a /. So let's just check that. I'm going to click on browse. Okay, found no servers because I've done something that switched this whole thing off here. Let's just go to, when that happens, go to SQL Server Configuration Manager and make sure that everything is running. Okay, well, on my machine it says it is running. So all these instances are running. You'll need to find the instance that's relevant to you. So it might be Debtors Manager that you're looking for, or it might just simply say SQL Express. It all depends. But to get it running, you would simply right-click and say start the engine or enable it or restart it, whatever pops up there that makes sense. Okay, and you also need to make sure that your server browser is running. If the server browser says stopped, it will not work across the network. It will still work on the server. So on my setup here, that's not an issue. I don't have a network. But if you are connecting across the network, you must make sure that this says running. Okay, that's a key factor. Okay, so that's under your SQL Server Configuration Manager. I just want to see now why this is not running. I'm going to restart my server again. Okay. Let's go back to here. Okay, I know why it said. When I clicked on browse and I couldn't find any SQL servers, it's simply because I have not clicked use Windows security. I do not have a username and password set up across the network because I'm not on a network. So I needed to click use Windows security. Now when I click browse, it's going to work. Okay, so these are the little things that SQL will want you to do, and it still gives me this error message. That's really cockeyed. Let's go back here. I want to see something. It's not happy with me at all. It does give me a drop down, so it means I am connected to my database. If I select this one here and say OK, still not. Okay. I'm going to cancel this whole thing here. Okay. So this is a real live demonstration of what happens when SQL refuses to cooperate. I'm going to reopen Debtors Manager and see if that works. Okay. So we couldn't have hoped for a better demo. Here we are. Okay. So can't log on, click OK, and we're on Windows Security. I'm just going to click OK and see what happens. Still not happy. So I might have done something in my settings. Sorry, let's go back to here. Let's go to SA. I'm just going to, now we've got even more fun. Okay, let's click enabled and see what happens. Now, to make that change live, I need to restart. Okay. This is typical of what happens with SQL. You never know exactly what's causing the issue, so you need to go through all the troubleshooting steps to make sure that everything. Okay. What's quite weird is I've got all these things here. Let's just see. Okay, so this time it's happy. I just needed to reconnect to the server by reopening. So if I go back here, I should be able to open one of my other databases, if it exists. I probably deleted a whole lot of databases. Let's just come back to that. If you wanted to delete one of the names here, you'll notice that you can't delete any name. You need to delete your databases using Studio Manager. There's no other way to get rid of these. So in some instances here, I have actually gone into my, I'm going to show you exactly what I've done. I'm just going to open a new Windows Explorer here. Close that one. I'm going to go, I want to show you exactly where you'll find your database files. So that you would find in your program files, Microsoft SQL Server, and you'll see I've got all these instances, so you need to know where to look. Just double click until you find data. Okay, so I've got all these data files sitting here. If I want to delete a data file, and I go and delete it directly from here, it's going to be a real problem when I go back to Studio Manager, because I've got these databases sitting here. So for instance, this database, I've already deleted the actual database in Windows Explorer. Okay, so when I look here, that database doesn't exist. There's no such thing called Nirvana. However, it sits here. So if I right click on Nirvana and I want to delete it, okay, it's not what I want. Right click, delete. It's not actually going to be able to delete it because it won't find it. Okay, so it says failed. The reason it failed is there is no such database. So if I wanted to delete a database, the one that I've just created here, right click, delete, and now I'll click OK. It's going to delete it. Okay. Because it can actually find that database sitting in the right location. Taking a bit longer than it should. Might be because Windows is open here. So that's how sensitive doesn't like the fact that I've got this window open. So I'll close the window here. Try again. This is one of the joys of working with SQL. Doesn't do what you expect it to do. Okay, it's going to fail again. As soon as SQL starts thinking, it's going to bomb out. Okay, didn't work. Okay. At this point, I can't actually tell you why that is the case. Probably, if I refresh my engine and I reopen it and then I right-click on it, it will let me do it. But I'm not going to do that this minute. Okay. So, coming back to where we were, going through our checklist, I said, make sure that your server's the right name, make sure that you've got the right username and the right password, and we were talking about the server showing the instance name. So I just want to see if I can get this back up again now. Again, it's doing it. Okay, for whatever reason, it doesn't let me find any SQL. It's not letting me browse. But what I want to show you, okay, let's go back to here. You've got a backslash there with your instance name. So if I wanted to connect not to Ivan PC but to Ivan backslash SQL Express, and it wasn't displaying here, I could go and say backslash SQL Express. Okay, if I click OK now, or drop down first and see what I can find in that database. Here we have TestDB, that's the only one, and that's correct. So if I click on that, select it, and it's connected now to that Pastel company. So if I went to File, OK, Pastel company file, I've connected my TestDB to this demo file. Alright? So if I went to File, Open Company again, now I've got this instance showing here, Ivan backslash SQL Express, and the database. And that corresponds with what we've got here. So under SQL Express, expand that, and there's my TestDB, same as my TestDB here. So that's really a key thing. I see a lot of people struggling with this because they often don't have the right server name up there. Remember, when you're dealing on a network, you might have multiple people who have got SQL servers loaded on their own PCs, their local PC. So the name of the server is really important. It might say server, it might say lightning, whatever it might be, and it might say a whole lot of individual names. So you'll be able to view all these different server names once you've clicked on browse and drop down. But remember, you're looking for a match to find the name that your database is sitting under. So to recap, now that you've got a bit of an overview of the whole story, step one, we've installed SQL on the server. So assuming that you've had a fresh install, you've used your Pastel CD, it's installed SQL successfully, you open your Debtors Manager, and you get to this dialog here, and it says, and now you're on the server, remember, so it says, okay, you can create a new database, so you do, you click on New Database, and we'll call it Brand New. We click OK, we've done that, we're going to link it to, I'm going to say OK now, we're going to link it to our Pastel company. And that's all done. Okay. I'll refresh it. It's the first time we're opening that one. So that's fine now. And when I go back to this dialog here, if I restart my server, it will show that new database displayed under here. So that's all good. Now you come along to your workstation. And again, you've installed Debtors Manager, but you do not install SQL Server on the machine. How it happens that people end up installing SQL Server on the local PC, and I've seen this like 80% of the times that there's troubleshooting. I want to show you a screenshot here. The wizard takes you to the screen here. Okay, it says you want to install Microsoft SQL Server. So this pops up on the workstation. And you say, fine, yes, I do want to install it. That's the engine. That's what we're using. However, we need to not now go and install the database. We need to click on Browse. This little button here is the key. We need to browse over the network for the instance and the SQL Server name and the instance that you've just installed on the server. And after that, you put in your login, which is SA, and your password, Debtors Manager 123, and click Next. And then, all good. That will result in not reinstalling SQL Server on your local PC. However, if you just go and click Next, and it says, yes, we're installing to local, that's a big problem. Because now you've gone and created a database on your local PC and you haven't connected to the server and you haven't got your data flowing over the network. Okay, so you end up with a situation where each individual, if there are multiple users in Debtors Manager, they've all got their own database and none of them are talking to one another. You don't have a multi-user environment. So to avoid that, simple as click on Browse and find that SQL Server name and instance name, and put in your login and password. If the login ID and password fail at this stage, that's your first indication that the server was already running another instance of SQL. So when you're installing SQL on your server, the first thing you need to do is check whether there is already Microsoft SQL running. So I would either go to Add Remove Programs and have a look if it's sitting, in your control panel under Add Remove Programs, or just go to All Programs and browse for Microsoft SQL Server. If you see it sitting there, stop. Do not install Debtors Manager blindly. Okay, you'll run into trouble. The first step is you need to find out the username and password. So you would open Configuration Manager. That is your first step when you're on the client side. And you would go to the system person and ask what the password and the usernames are. And you would then be able to create a database from here. Okay. So you go File, Open Company, and your server name would be the one that you've got here sitting under Configuration Manager. Okay. However, you know what the password is, and that's the big deal. So you would go here, enter the username and password. It's not necessarily SA. They might have changed it. People do all sorts of strange things, and that's why it creates so much difficulty further down the line. And when all else fails, as I've said before, if you don't know the username password, if the IT administrator doesn't know who did whatever, either uninstall SQL Server or reinstall SQL Server and create a new instance. But when you're reinstalling SQL Server, download a copy of SQL Server from Microsoft, free downloads. Don't use the pastel CD because that wizard will try and it's just not going to allow you to create an instance the way it should be created. Okay, so the pastel CD is for fresh installs only. That's really important. Otherwise, you're just going to waste a lot of time at your client. Of course, you can always email me. I'm going to give you guys my email address. Let me just see. Are you guys out there? I just had someone who's saying that nothing's happening on their screen, so they lost the connection. I just want to see here. Just hold on a sec for me. I see a lot of people are still logged in. Can you guys put something up on your chat box just to give me confirmation that the audio and the screens are working correctly when I switch between screens? I'm just going to get my chat box up here. Okay. Everybody's happy. Cool. They must have lost their ADSL connection or Eskom cut their power. Alright. So, coming back to where we were. Sorry about that. This is your key screen, and I'm just being emphatic that if SQL was running prior to you, download a fresh copy, or get the IT person involved, or send me an email, ivango@outlook.com. Okay, there it is. Okay. I can log in via TeamViewer if you guys are stuck, and I just don't want to see that we've reinstalled SQL on the workstation after trying to drum it into everyone's head not to do that. Let's see, what do I need to show you? Yes, let me go back to Configuration Manager and just show you regarding the ports. So to recap, what we need here is for everything to be running in terms of the server name and the browser name. You don't need the agent to be running. I've never seen a need for that. If it's standard setup, you can just make sure the browser is running. If the browser is not running, you won't be able to connect to SQL over the network. As far as ports go, let's just open up here. So if I click on protocols, here are my ports. They must all be enabled. So if I right-click on here, you can either enable or disable. So this is a critical one, the TCP/IP. If I right-click on it and click on properties and go down to IP addresses, this is one of the things that sometimes comes into it. You might want to create a port, meaning a connection where SQL Server can send data over the network to the PC. Typically, you don't need to do this if a client is running decent server software, because SQL Server will talk to the server software and set everything up when you're doing your installation automatically. However, it might happen that the software doesn't allow it to set up properly or whatever it is, and you can come here and create a port. So let's call it port 1433. That is a typical SQL Server port. Once you've created that port here, you need to go to Windows, Firewall, in your control panel, and create an exception for that port. All right. Typically, you know, if I show you on my PC here, under control panel, Windows Firewall. Okay. So we want to allow a program or a feature through the firewall. Okay. So I'm not on a network as such, so I don't have that issue, because I'm not trying to connect. But if you see the word cache code TCP, then you know that it's allowed it over the network. But on server software, you will be able to see port 1433, the one that you've just created here. Okay, so that 1433, you'll be able to create an exception in your firewall. It's worthwhile knowing that, because if your port is blocked or not open, you're not going to be able to get the data flowing over the network. You'll just get a cryptic clue from SQL Server saying that the connection is closed. And this might be one of the reasons that it's closed. The reasons for this webinar is really due to the fact that SQL Server gives such cryptic error messages. You don't really understand what the cause of the error message is, other than that there's no connection over the network. It might be any one of several reasons, and that's what we try to cover today, which is saying, well, it's your instance name, it's your username, it's your password, it's your mixed mode authentication, or it's your port, or your engines are not running. If a client is running antivirus software, or like an ESET or Norton antivirus, etc., make sure that there is an exception in that firewall. It's worth just turning off the firewall for 10 minutes to see if that resolves the connection issue that you're having. All right, I'm going to cancel this. Let's see, I'm going to go back to my agenda here and just see if we've covered everything that I wanted to. Okay, so really what we were saying is SQL, the issues are always security, not installing. Installing SQL on the server isn't where I see trouble. I see trouble connecting from the server to the workstation or vice versa, from the workstation to the server. And that's where we need Management Studio and Configuration Manager. And one of the solutions is to download Microsoft MS SQL from Microsoft's site. Okay. These questions are critical. You need to know the password. That's what I was saying, the correct instance, etc. For everything else, Dr. Google. One of the good things about Microsoft SQL is that everyone has trouble with it, and there are huge resources out there. There's a lot of support communities for Microsoft SQL, but specifically for Debtors Manager, we've got this document here, which I will put up I'll email to you guys. It will definitely help you if you haven't seen it before. And you're also welcome to send me an email if you need further help. Just while we're in this little section here, I want to if I click on my right click on TestDB, okay, it brings up tasks. You would want to, at some point or regularly, do a backup. And that's how you do a backup of your SQL database using Studio Manager. So you're going to right-click on there, on the name of the database, go to Tasks and Backup. Okay. Let's see what else there is under my documents here. I'm going to send you this document, how to switch from mixed mode or switch to mixed mode authentication in the event that you find that you've only got Windows security set up. And let's see what else. General troubleshooting. I'll send you this document. Again, how to identify which database you're working with. Well, if you're not sure which version of Debtors Manager you're running, you can, if you get to this stage anyway, you go to Help, About, and it says you're on the SQL Server database. If it doesn't say that, then you can assume that you're on the Access database. So it must say SQL Server. Also, when you go to File and you click on Open Company, you must get to Database Login dialog. If you don't have this pop up, again, you're on the Access database, nothing's going to happen. So even if you've installed SQL on your server, nothing's going to happen across the network from your workstation. Go back to this little document here. Okay. Yeah, this is not a SQL issue. If they haven't run the year-end close, you need to do that. If your current system date is beyond the year-end close date. Yeah. If the age analysis information in Debtors Manager differs from partner, you need to just check that you've got the right partner company. So that go back to Debtors Manager and just click on File, Locate Capital Company File, and make sure that you are reading the data from the correct file. Useful trick. And let's see what else. I think that's pretty much it. Yep. Okay. There will be a recording of this webinar that we're going to be placing up on YouTube. So we'll email that to you when it's up. And a whole host of documents I'll be emailing to you that might be of help, along with my email address, which you'll have. Further than that, new developments for Debtors Manager. We're going to soon have BIC reports that will be available for users. They'll be able to run BIC reports directly out of Debtors Manager using Debtors Manager data. There will be user roles and permissions so that people will not be able to delete notes of other users, etc. There'll be administrator rights and normal user rights. And one other thing that we're creating, a totally separate module to manage supplies, so there'll be Creditors Manager coming up as well. which will be kind of a mirror image of Debtors Manager. So you would have your age analysis here. It would contain your creditors, and you'd be able to manage creditors in a similar fashion to debtors. Okay, I'm ready to take your questions now. I'll look under Q&A. If you've got any questions, go to your Q&A, please, and you can type them in there, or you're welcome to send me an email and I'll respond as well. Okay. Anybody? Everybody happy? Let me just check on my chat box that no one is missing a question. It must have been a successful session. No one's got any questions, so I've created another 40 experts in SQL Studio Manager. Cool, guys. I'm signing off. You're welcome to send me an email. I'll certainly send you an email of today's events. Thanks for joining. Cheers.